Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. The fellas heading down to the SEC to take a look at an intriguing matchup as Auburn heads on the road to play LSU, an Auburn offense that struggled to move the ball versus an LSU defense that struggled to stop opponents from moving the ball. Something's going to have to give in this one. Excited to get into this. Before we do, just want to say thank you to you guys. It's been such a blast taking deep dives into all these teams, breaking down the matchups. The support from y'all has been absolutely phenomenal. So if you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. But more importantly, would love to hear from you guys in the comment section. I got some hot takes here that I'm going to get off my chest. Would love to hear from you guys what your thoughts are on it. Dill, going to kick this one to you first. Give you the tee box here. Auburn LSU, how are we feeling about it?
I mean, you kind of talk about it. An Auburn offense that, again, hasn't really shown any life, really up until that Georgia game where they showed something. I think their offensive line's coming along a little bit. They're starting to block people. They're starting to run the football much better. And just on the LSU side, I think it's like the national mystery, frankly, why this defense figured out. I think coming in, you look at that front seven, it's loaded at both levels.
I said it was the best front seven in the country heading into the year.
And that wouldn't have been crazy because, like, it's super talented. And frankly, like, you've seen flashes of really good play from them, but the consistency's been bad. And then you look at the secondary. We had our questions about that. There's certainly some talent on that unit, but good God, it's not.
If you told me it was just the LSU secondary that struggled this year, it would make a lot of sense. And we talked about it. Like, Brian Kelly went to the transfer portal so aggressively to get defensive backs in. You knew there was a personnel problem back there. For this front seven, we kind of said, like, this defense can be good because the front seven is going to cover up for it and kind of create some pressure. It's not been the case. And I got to start with how they're using Harold Perkins. Still, I was diving into it. I text you this every Saturday when LSU plays. My frustration about how Harold Perkins is used in this defense. LSU, when Harold Perkins is on the field, has faced 211 pass attempts. He's only rushed the passer on 80 of those. You have arguably the best pass rusher in the whole entire country, not just the conference, but the country, and you're not using him to rush the passer. I'm not saying this is the only reason this LSU defense has struggled, but man, if you're struggling to generate a pass rush and you have a guy like Harold Perkins, why are you not sending him to go tackle the quarterback like he's best at doing? It does not make any sense.
And that's the thing. When Harold Perkins is playing like a freer game, which I think we thought he was going to, because Omar Speights would be in there kind of playing that traditional middle.
They got plenty of good backers. Whit Weeks, Greg Penn, like, that's not the problem.
No, and it's like, okay, that should free up Harold Perkins to go play that kind of, again, I don't know how to describe it. He's obviously on the edge last year. He was spying. He was blitzing. He was doing things to get him around the football. And this year, they've just done the opposite. They're not really letting him play with any freedom. He's just playing a very vanilla linebacker role. And he's just too much of a game breaker, I would say, to be doing that. Like, when he's out there making plays, getting sacks, forcing fumbles, like, that's when you felt like this LSU, it gave that defense energy. It made those big game-changing plays. And you just haven't really seen any of that this year from this defense.
Man, I mean, like, college football, we like to come on here and try to break it down like it's some sort of complicated sport. Like, sometimes it's not. And sometimes you just got dogs. You got your playmakers. Go let them be playmakers. I feel like they're just not letting Harold Perkins be that playmaker. They're looking at this Auburn offense. I mean, it's obvious where you want to attack this LSU defense. You want to attack them in the back end. Now, the question is, can Peyton Thorne, who has not thrown for over 100 yards the last couple games, can he do that against an LSU secondary that is certainly gettable, and that might be saying it pretty nicely.
And frankly, for Peyton Thorne, I think that's a combo he's obviously got to play better. And frankly, if you're being realistic about who Peyton Thorne is, you kind of knew there was like a limit on his skill set.
100%.
Like, as being a Michigan fan and watching a lot of Big Ten football, you kind of knew Peyton Thorne would go as far as his teammates would take him. He's not a guy who's going to win you football games on his own. And he's obviously struggled, but frankly, you're seeing too many drops too. I don't think the wide receivers have been playing at the level they need to be to again, make it work for Peyton Thorne. But I will say what's coming along is the run game, and that offensive line starting to play some physical, moving guys around football that, again, if you thought what Auburn needed to do to be remotely successful, it had to be that.
if you're taking an optimistic approach, it's like, all right, you got 2 weeks off, you got the bye week, and maybe you see like a little bit more of that passing game get installed and get Peyton throwing a little bit more comfortable. I think they got the talent at the wide receiver. I mean, I get the wide receiver play hasn't been elite, but they got some guys like a guy like Shane Hooks, Jay Fair. I would like to see them get Rivaldo Fairweather too. Like just throw them some 50-50 balls. Like make it easy on Peyton Thorne and say, hey, I'm going to go find my playmakers and go let them make plays and just see what happens. And that's kind of what I'm calling for again. Lean on the run game when teams want to put bodies in the box to stop that run game. Let Peyton Thorne take some shots downfield, see what you can do. You have some guys who are really good in those contested catch situations. Shane Hooks.
And frankly, if you're Auburn, I get it. And I think you can do, like, you got to find your guys on the perimeter. And the one thing I do like what Auburn's doing, though, is they're starting to play a game that is obviously putting defenders in conflict. And that's what stuck out to me in that Georgia game.
Oh, Hugh Freeze is starting to cook a little bit. 100, like you can tell, like that was a Hugh Freeze game against Georgia. Like they don't have the talent to move the ball against Georgia's defense, but they were doing it because I thought Hugh Freeze really schemed up a nice offensive script. I'm looking
for a defense like some linebackers who are, again, like Harold Perkins is still kind of learning that true linebacker spot. Omar Spates has been inconsistent with injuries and health and even play at times. And then just some other young backers around them. Like, I think you got to attack them. You got to try to confuse them like you did to Georgia, and that worked really effectively. And again, play on this LSU, frankly, inexperience and maybe lack of discipline at times, and try to do what you did against Georgia, because that's been the only time it's really worked. Everything else Auburn's tried, you really haven't really seen it click, if you will, or get going at all.
All right. 7 minutes in, we haven't talked about the best player that'll be on the field this Saturday, Jaden Daniels. Heisman Trophy candidate if this team was winning more football games. And I would argue that this LSU offense is the best offense you see across the country. Like every time this offense touches the ball, it's moving the ball, it's scoring points. Jaden Daniels, the numbers are insane. 72% completion percentage, 19 touchdowns, 2,000 yards through the air, another 400 on the ground. He's playing like a Heisman caliber quarterback. There's a really solid offensive line. Logan Diggs has kind of taken over that running back one workload. Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas on the outside. This Auburn defense has been phenomenal, but we haven't really seen a defense slow LSU down. And although they're not winning games, this LSU offense has been an absolute juggernaut the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, and I don't know what the answer could possibly be, because there is no weakness. The offensive line is really good in pass protection. They're starting to move guys around. They can run a physical in between the tackles. Rushing attack, they can use Jaden Daniels on the perimeter to hit you there. They can throw deep. They can throw short to Mason Taylor. There's just, again, you talk about like the best offense in college football. I don't even think it's crazy to say that's them.
A lot of people want to talk about the Pac-12 teams, and we've been high on what
they're not complete like this. They don't have the physicality at the running or like the rushing attack to be physical. Like, and then Jaden Daniels, again, you just talk like if they were winning more games, we'd be talking like generationally good season.
He'd be the leading. He'd be the Heisman Trophy winner. I truly do think that if this team is undefeated or even has that one loss to Florida State, you're talking about legit a Heisman caliber season. Auburn's defense has been solid. Like, and they've been put in bad situations where the offense can't stay on the field. Guy like Eugene Asante really stepping up. Jalen Simpson in the back end. That's probably what I'm most excited about. I think Auburn has a legit, really good secondary, and they're going up against arguably the best passing attack that you see in college football. I think Jaden Daniels is going to get his. It's just how much can you slow him down is the question.
When my concern for Auburn, though, is the pass rush hasn't really been
wildly good.
And I think that, again, you look at how good this secondary is playing with a pass rush that really isn't getting home. I think somehow they're going to need to try to find a way to scheme blitzes up. And again, you saw a couple times against Texas or A&M in Georgia where they could get home blitzing and their linebackers are athletic and they're explosive and they can get home. But the problem is the front four is just not winning enough consistently, and LSU's offensive line's too good. And if you can't do anything to affect Jaden Daniels, he's just playing at
he's going to piece you out
level to let him just sit there and be comfortable, because I don't know how you stop this wideouts passing attack and led by him.
All right, Bill. Let's get to the pick here. LSU 11-point favorites at home against Auburn, coming off a bye. Who are you rocking with here?
I think LSU. I think just the way this offense is playing, I don't think there's a defense in the country who can really slow them down. I think they'll probably score well over 30 points in almost every game they play. And
that's not even a knock on Auburn's defense. Like, I think
no,
this is one of the better
any defense,
defenses
like
in the SEC.
Michigan,
Yeah.
Georgia, it doesn't matter who they play. There just isn't an answer when you are good at every position. And that feels like where LSU's at. And Auburn just, I don't know that they have the firepower right now to keep up with that type of scoring.
That's like, I think Auburn might have some success moving the football, but I don't think it'll be consistent enough to cover the 11 points. I could see, and I'm with you, LSU scoring 35, maybe even 40 points again against an Auburn defense that I like. I don't think Auburn can consistently move the football, even against an LSU defense. I'll go with the Tigers too, and this will be an interesting team to watch because this LSU defense is talented. And if it can get some confidence, you might see them kind of put it together. Excited for this one. What? It's a night game, right? Night game in Tiger Stadium, 7:00. It's going to be jumping. Appreciate you guys rocking with the fellas. Again, if you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Appreciate y'all, and we'll talk to y'all later.